the way the AI functions and what we've built is essentially an AI that's grounded in medical documents, and we have lots of doctors that work for us, so we've built a library of thousands of medical documents that we use to kind of ground the AI. So it's accurate, right? We have done the only test, and we have the only published paper about this, where we have had an AI start with nothing, right? It essentially says, "Hey, what's going on?" Right? And then it correctly asks all of the questions to diagnose somebody. And then our AI will always give 4 diagnoses, because just like a real doctor, you never say, "You've got this." It's always, "That's probably this, but it could be this, this, or this," right?
Yep.
And then, since we have human doctors in the loop, and we have people that have talked to the AI and then seen human doctors, we are able to know the accuracy of our AI's diagnosis.
Welcome to Nxt In. We have another wonderful edition. I guess we're hitting fall. The weather is beautiful here in Nashville. We are really privileged to be joined by Matt Pavel. He's co-founder and co-CEO of Doctronic, which is an AI healthcare company, which we'll get into here in a little bit. I got my co-host Shane Shaun. So thanks for joining us. So Matt, we'll just kind of move right into it with you. I know most people want to hear from me, but you more specifically, you're doing great. Doctronic is growing and everything is going amazing. Give us a little bit more of the origin story and where you've come from and so on.
Yeah, cool. Easy to do. Thanks, Shane and Taylor, by the way. Pleasure to be here. So I studied computer science at Carnegie Mellon. I grew up kind of outside Boston. My father was actually a professor at MIT. I grew up with very early terminals connected to the internet, all sorts of fun stuff. So I always knew I wanted to study computer science, do something with computers, right? And so I went to Carnegie Mellon, and it was great. It's a fantastic place to study CS, as I'm sure you know. But one of the things that I learned pretty early on there was that I got tired of education really quickly. So I knew I did not want to get a master's or a PhD or like continue on that level of education. And the reason being that I really just wanted to build things and make things. And I've always liked to build and create. And whether it was a treehouse or writing software, I just like to make things, or working on my car when I was in high school. So, whatever it was, I like to create. I think, when I was in school, this was a long time ago, I started my first company before I had graduated. And this was kind of during the first .com boom. And so it shows how old I am. I built a company, and when I graduated from college, I kind of kept running it. It was just me, and I was just building some really early kind of SEO, SEM software back in the wild west of the internet, when there were multiple search engines. Believe it or not, there was you may remember, Taylor. I don't know.
Netscape.
Yeah, but also there was like Excite and Alta Vista, and there was more than Google, right?
Oh yeah,
nowadays I suppose there's Google and like ChatGPT, which is super interesting.
But I don't have fair enough there to understand what you guys
right, like
right now.
Imagine there are like 5 or 6 Googles. That's all you need to know. It's great.
Yep.
So back in those early days, in the wild west of the internet, getting your sites ranked well in multiple search engines was a big deal. And so that was my first company. I built a company to essentially do that, wrote some software, etc. And I sold that just before the .com boom, and thought everything was great, and was like, this is easy, let's do it again, right?
So started your first company before graduating. Did you
sold it a little bit afterwards,
school, or did you sell after graduating?
I sold it after graduating. Yeah.
I do have to pause and ask a question real quick, because you said that you went to Carnegie Mellon. Your dad was a professor at MIT.
Yeah.
I know that when I grew up in Lewiston, Idaho, which is surrounded by a bunch of cougs. Everybody goes to Wazoo. They're all cougars. And I was the one kid that grew up, and I was like, I'm born to be a Husky. I'm going to Seattle, and I'm wearing purple and gold. No chance I'm becoming a coug. I'm curious if that same sort of mentality was in your household, or you're like, my dad was, MIT. I'm going to Carnegie Mellon, and it was like a defiance kind of thing.
Yeah, I just wanted something different. Yeah. I mean, MIT is incredible, right? But I kind of grew up on the campus.
Yeah.
So I just
Well,
want
this is your opportunity to talk about how MIT is not really good and
yeah,
Carnegie
MIT is
Mellon.
fantastic. I don't have to knock MIT. Yeah, yeah, it's great.
No good engineers have ever come out of MIT. They all come from Carnegie Mellon.
I just assumed it was one of those like no chance there's nepotism about me
Yeah.
getting into a school where my dad's a professor. Was that ever a thing or no?
Um, I don't think I thought enough about nepotism when I was a senior in high school. I think it
Yeah,
was
right.
just like, I'm just going to apply to a bunch of colleges and see which ones I get into and, make a
That's
choice
fair.
after that. And so it was pretty straightforward. I wanted to get away from home though, right? Like, some people like to stay where they've been the whole time. And I like to move around. In fact, I have lived in a lot of cities in this country. I haven't lived internationally, but I've moved around a lot in the U.S. Really enjoyed it. I live in New York now. I love New York. I never want to be anywhere except New York, but I've lived in Boston, Pittsburgh, Philly, Miami, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, probably one or two other cities in there.
What's your
But
favorite one that you've lived at?
New York for sure. Yeah,
Why
number one.
why is New York your favorite over Chicago, which I prefer?
Chicago's a great town, man. I love it. Right. New York just has everything. Right. It's just if there is a melting pot, I think that's New York.
Let me ask you this. You have a final day and you have
Yeah.
one day to do as many things carefree and you could get anywhere in like the snap of a finger, right? Like you could teleport. What are the things that you're doing in New York on your final day?
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say where was I going to go other than New York?
No,
Yeah.
in New York. Like, I'm just curious, like
Oh.
how does one spend the best day possible in New York?
Wow. Well, there are a lot of restaurants, but that's just too easy. So pick some good restaurants. But like I would go to the Bronx Zoo. I would go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I would go to the Museum of Natural History. Right. I would definitely hit like the top of the World Trade Center, and then I would hit the top of some of the buildings in Hudson Yards now because they have like great views of the city. I would go walk through Central Park. I would actually go to the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens too. They're pretty sick. Yeah, lots of. I mean, those are just the easy big things. But if you want to pick something for one day left, I would pick those big things for sure.
Final meal, final restaurant.
Oh man, final meal. Listen, this is like the. By the way, this is funny, or not funny, but this is easy because the final meal is easy. Whenever somebody has that, what would you eat if you were stranded alone on a desert, or what was if you could only have one meal for the rest of your life on a desert island? What would it be? For me, it's easy. It's a pepperoni pizza. There's just no doubt. I could happily live my whole life.
Deep dish, right? Deep dish, Chicago style pepperoni pizza.
Next, yeah, Chicago style New York pepperoni pizza for sure. By the way, I would eat that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner too if it wasn't going to make me 600
You
pounds.
can't roll it up. It's not an option type of thing.
Do you fold your pizza?
You have to. How can you not?
Yeah.
The New York slices are too big to not fold.
I'm from Chicago, and I am a gigantic pizza snob, as he knows, because the stuff here in Nashville sucks. But I will say I love New York pizza. I like deep dish better. Just it's where I grew up, but I love New York pizza.
Okay, guys,
but now hold on, no. Now I have to ask you though. So what about Detroit style pizza? Because so the thing about the Chicago is it feels like a loaf of bread. I want less crust, but like the Detroit is like a thinner crust, but it's still deep dish, right? And it's still kind of fried and oily and delicious.
That's a little bit. It's a little bit backwards. The crust in Chicago is actually relatively thin, except for on the backside, but then you get a significant amount of the rest. Someone told me once it's like lasagna with a crust, and I'm like, well, that's close. That's not a horrible way to explain it.
So I think I made a mistake. I think I took us on a detour.
Well, you got a guy in New York and a guy from Chicago. You
and I'm just angry because I haven't had breakfast yet. So my food allowed us to do the talking here. So I want to get back to where we were a second ago, which was you talked about like after college, you had your first sell. Like you built your SEO, SEM business. You had your first acquisition. Tell me what that experience was like, especially at such a young age, because I can't imagine there's a lot of people that have started a business in college. I have to imagine there's probably a lot that aspire to that, but not a lot that actually execute on it, let alone sell it. So help me understand, how did that happen? Why did it happen? And how did that shift your mind at such a young age?
I mean, I kind of fell into it. It was mostly accidental, right? I was just trying to build something, and suddenly people were asking me, if I could help them. And so, in fact, early on, like my college roommate and I were like stupidly competitive to see whose like personal college website could get better ranked on search engines. So that and it was dumb. There was like no point to it, but that's what happened, right? That was kind of the way it started. Um, and as far as how it impacted me, I mean, it was it wasn't a big sale, but it was a sale, right? I had some money as a kid, which was great. I moved briefly to LA, and then I moved to Florida to see my sister and my brother-in-law and spend some time with them, and then ended up starting a second company in Florida and built an e-commerce system like platform for small businesses, and ran that for a few years. And then I actually sold that too, which was a slightly bigger sale, but still modest and great. Um, and things were going real well. And then I joined a startup as a super early employee that was building a company that was doing Google Street View, but a few years ahead of Google. And it was a really interesting product. And then the real estate market crashed, and I had just pretty much invested all my money in that, and so everything is wiped, right? Um, and so it's one of those. I don't know. You're young, have a couple successes, you have a massive failure. What do you do? And uh, I took it as the opportunity to move to New York, get out of Florida. I don't always wanted to move to New York,
Yeah, everyone when they're
and
at
kind
their
of start all
lowest
over, right?
poorest point
They moved to
go
New
to New
York.
York. You're like, let's
No,
go to
I
the
was
most
like,
expensive
I mean,
city ever.
like
Because I'm
it wasn't like the low. Listen, I was still able to earn an income, right?
yeah.
But honestly, like most of what I had earned from selling two previous companies, which again were small, but there was still money. It was wiped. Painful experience. But I guess that's kind of the mark of somebody who just wants to build, right? You do it because it's fun. You do it because you
Mhm.
enjoy it. You do it because it's what you want to do more than anything else. So you get back up. You go again. And so moved to New York, started building again. Was the founding CTO at a company called Mode Operandi, which is still around. It's a big e-commerce fashion platform. It was a unicorn. Um, kind of moved around a lot, and after I built that, started another company that crashed. Started another one that's still around. So a lot of back and forth, a lot of starting companies, some crash, starting something else, some succeed. I co-founded a company 5 years ago now called Pinata Rent, which is a nice, successful Series B startup doing rent rewards and credit building for lower income American renters. And I actually left that last May, I guess it was, to work on Doctronic full time, because I think Doctronic is even more meaningful than that, and also a much bigger market opportunity. So I think the journey is successes and failures, and certainly like my fair share of both, and trying to get to something later in life, trying to build things that are more important, that are going to be more impactful, that are going to help people more.
So, and I want to ask about Doctronic and talk about
Yeah.
that. But before, as we're like kind of hitting this place in your story, you might have this answer like really fast, and it might not come to you right
Uh-oh.
away. You've gone through, as you've described, maybe we'll call it 4 great successes or 5 great successes, and 3 or 4 that didn't become successful. Do you
Sure.
see any? And I'm sure there's plenty of things that they have in common and plenty of things that they have different. But do you see anything that you're like, well, with every single one of the successes, we solved a problem, or we did the like, and I don't know if the failures truly solved a problem as much as they were just a nice feature, something like that, something that you can
Yeah.
look at and go, and obviously it's all hindsight, so I don't know that this is going to solve the world's problems, but in hindsight, can you see anything that you're like, those two things were definitely the mark of the successful ones versus the not as successful ones?
Yeah, there's definitely. So I've thought about this a lot, because I've had some successes, and I've had definitely a huge number of horrific crashes. Right, I had a crash that was so bad that I gave all of my friends and family money back to my friends and family, which was vicious. I will
Well,
not do a friends and family round again after having had that happen. But I think the honest and best answer I can give is timing, right? Um, you have to be ahead of the curve, but not too far ahead of the curve. And so, we'll see how that pans out with the current business. But there's one example. So at one point, I was building a customizable like clothing platform, right? And it was very early in the tech space, and 3D. It was all 3D, and it wasn't the tech on iPads and iPhones and the ability to kind of do accurate rendering in 3D just wasn't there yet. This was really early on. This was 2013 or maybe even earlier. Um,
The adoption of
and
things like Snapchat weren't exactly mass yet.
yeah, right. And so it was certainly cutting edge, but the hardware and the software, it wasn't a good enough experience, right? And so that company failed. But 4 years later, a friend of mine started a company that did the exact same thing, and it was a success, right? And it's great, and I'm super glad, and it worked. But timing, right? Like timing is incredibly important, and
Well,
so
they
you need
they
to.
talk about that with what is it in this you would remember this, Shane probably doesn't, but the iPod, the original iPod, and how
Yeah,
that exploded. And back when I was in business school, or maybe it was shortly thereafter, you'd read articles of the iPod, but the iPod was not the first MP3
right.
player. Zune, I think it was the original like hardware
Yeah,
MP3 player that went from a Discman to now we could just have
yeah,
this software product or hardware product that played software, but it never took off. And then all of a sudden you have the Apple, and if it was nothing more than, obviously some people would say Apple's marketing, but it was probably that 2 year window where people were starting to prepare and be okay with this weird device that you spun in a circle and everyone
yeah,
needed to have one, right? So or the same thing, there's many examples of that. Or you talk about .com era, which is that I guess mid to late 90s, and then the bust that happened. Like if you got into it too late and it's 2002, well then your SEO SEM business probably doesn't sell and no one
sure,
cares about it.
not worth it.
If you get into the SEO SEM business in 91, I don't think anyone probably cares, right? They're like,
Right,
I don't care if I rank on what is Google anyway.
right.
And then you hit that perfect window of people had started to care, but it wasn't like there was so many people doing it, and the market had crashed, right?
Yeah,
Real estate's not that different either. Everyone talks about getting into real estate. You get into real estate at the wrong time, and I can show you some people who've lost fortunes in real estate, even though it
that's
is a
right.
relatively safe investment.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
timing is very important.
Let me
Yeah.
ask you this, like throughout your time, because like you had these ups and downs, these ebbs and flows, like was there ever like could you attribute anything to like a role model, like maybe early on, maybe through the process? Like did you have a role model that kind of helped you kind of create
No.
your mindset, or was it just trial and error and like just pure grit and luck? Like I don't believe in luck. I'm going to use the word luck, but I don't believe in luck. But what do you think got you through all of those ebbs and flows?
I think it's just a love of building, right? I just like to build. I like to make things. I'm
Self
uh,
mutilation. Got it. Okay.
it's not even self mutilation. Like for example, I'm bad on vacation, right? Like I hate sitting on a beach, right? Like I love to go to like a nice warm area, but I want to go hiking or swimming or surfing or like whatever. Like, but I hate to sit idle. I can't do it, right? I can't watch a movie. Maybe it talks about brings up what we were talking about on Netflix, or maybe we can skip that. But yeah, even if I'm like watching a movie or something, I just have to do something. There's something else. Like it's rare that that I will ever be singly focused on anything. And so I think kind of part of that, I just always want to build, and I always want to be doing something. Means look, if something crashes, there's definitely a list of other things that I want to be working on. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get over the crash emotionally. You need some downtime. And so I don't think I ever had any sort of mentor or any sort of guiding principles other than the fact that like I felt like I had the skills and the tools to be able to build. And so I would just do it because I liked it.
Heck yeah. I
So
totally recognize the can't be idle thing. Lately, one of my favorite hobbies is I've been reading books, but I've been
Yep.
walking at the same time. So I'll walk anywhere from 3 to 6 miles while reading a physical book.
Love it.
And people look at me like I'm crazy, and I'm just like, I don't know how to do it any different. Like if I
Yeah.
sat down and read a book, I'd probably fall asleep, or I'd just
Yeah.
go
Dude,
batshit.
I love that, by the way. My mom used to do the same thing. She used to walk around some of the lakes in our hometown, and people would stop her and they would ask her, they would say, how can you walk and read at the same time? Like, how do you not trip? But it was, she just loved it. First off, it's kind of weird that some people can't, but I guess, some people can't. But yeah, for sure. It's a great combo. I love that. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about Doctronic, what you're doing, how you're solving, a little more specific about your current,
Yeah.
company.
Yeah, and we can talk about timing. So we're obviously we're not obviously, we are a Series A company. We closed our seed funding. Union Square Ventures led that in February, and then Lightspeed preempted our A in August. So we didn't need more money, but we're growing fast, and so we took some money, and I can kind of get into that. But the point of this is that we're very early. Right? I think that this is a good timing. It feels like the timing is right on this one, but we'll see. But Doctronic, it kind of started as a side project that my co-founder and I were just working on weekends, and it started when ChatGPT was released with like GPT-4, although it kind of started a little bit earlier with GPT 3.5. And so the problem that we're solving is patient access, or access to information. Because in our view, when you're talking about healthcare and all of the problems in healthcare, there are lots of problems for doctors and hospitals and payers and et cetera. But for patients, the only real problem is access, right? People have questions and they need answers, and they're not getting those answers in a timely manner. And I saw this. I think everybody knows this, right? This isn't new. It's not revelatory that healthcare is a problem everywhere in the world, and it's especially bad for people that don't have good health insurance. But it's a problem for everyone, right? Like my wife is a doctor, and a lot of my friends work for Meta or Google or Apple or whatever, and they used to call and say like, "Hey, I have a question. Can I talk to your wife?" And of course you can, but it's crazy that you have this phenomenal health insurance working for $1 trillion company and can't get access to medical information, right? Because nobody trusts WebMD, and Google is just sending you off to sites, and half the time WebMD and who the heck knows whether that's accurate or whether
And
what you
WebMD
are looking
always
for is
says you have cancer. Like every time you go to the Google doctor or WebMD, it's like you have terminal cancer.
right.
It's like, no,
We're
I'm just
sorry. Right. Here's an ad for a funeral home, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, and so, my co-founder and I were like, well, what if we could ground some AI like this in some sort of, medical knowledge, and what if we could make it accurate? And and also, we didn't know if people would want to talk to an AI about their health, because this was 2023 when we started, right? So,
I was literally just talking to somebody the other day about where they believe that like self-help and mental health is going to
yeah,
go. There's like a poll and a conversation around how people are using ChatGPT as its personal coach or personal therapist right
yeah,
now more than ever. And it's like when you talk about timing, I think that's a really interesting one where it's like I literally have friends that will say, was I wrong in this situation, ChatGPT? And will like type out the situation and like
yeah.
it for support and help. And so I believe that people as a consuming body is like more ready to accept this now than ever. And I would, and not only that, but Taylor and I were just at AHIP not too long ago, was that 6 months ago or something like that. And now it's not necessarily on the provider side, but on the payer side, everyone is talking about like, how do we use AI to improve customer experience? And I know that they're looking at it as like, you know, providers are struggling a lot, and the payers are like, how do we
Right.
support providers more? And there's like this interesting catch 22 around the payer conflict versus the provider conflict, and how to make costs more affordable. And everybody's trying to figure that out, and figure out accessibility, and trying to figure out in
Yeah.
like home-based care, function, so we could keep people out of hospitals. And so I'm curious about where you believe are some of the bottlenecks when it comes to AI, specifically in the healthcare industry.
I think there are a lot of bottlenecks. I think there are too many to talk about, because there's a lot of regulation, pending regulation, especially when it comes to mental health. Doctronic is kind of AI primary care, and we have human doctors as well, right? We're not just a chatbot. right? We employ a lot of human doctors, and so we have doctors that are available in all 50 states, 24/7. We're not really functional outside the U.S. yet, although hope to be at some point soon. But from an AI in healthcare, like in general, uh, it's hard to make AI good. It's easy to make AI okay. You can ask ChatGPT, should I take Tylenol or Advil, and you'll get the right answer a lot of the time, and that's great, right? Like ChatGPT is incredible. I think for the mental health, it's a lot harder, by the way. And I'm not a mental health expert, and Doctronic does not deal in mental health. But I think in the mental health, it's a lot trickier. I think for the personal coaching, it's probably pretty good. But I think what we're trying to solve are consumer problems. There are lots of companies that are building all sorts of tools to help make doctors more efficient, which is great.
Yep.
Doctors are overworked, and there's a huge doctor burnout problem that
Yep.
we are facing in all aspects of healthcare right now. And so, any tool that's going to make a doctor's work life easier is great. My mother-in-law is a doctor at NYU, and she spends her Sundays charting because she doesn't have enough time during the day to do all of the charting, and it has to occupy her weekend. And like, that's crazy, right? But we are very specifically going to trying to solve consumer problems, and as a result, the we think that is a place where AI can be incredibly impactful, right? There are not enough primary care physicians in the country. There's a massive shortage. It's just getting worse. Fewer and fewer doctors are entering the system. And there are fewer and fewer doctors that are choosing to be primary care doctors anyway. And there's an average of 3 weeks, 3 week wait time to see a primary care doctor in this country. And then there are, of course, healthcare deserts. Half of the country doesn't have access to primary care. We have people that are using Doctronic and talking to our human doctors. And they're saying that the cost of a doctor visit with us is less than the cost of gas for them to go drive to see their primary care doctor, which is crazy, but it's happening, right? Rural hospitals are shutting down.
So
I think,
is Doctronic both AI and telehealth kind of merging? Is that so?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
see, that's really intriguing. So it's not just AI; it's AI and it's the telehealth growth and boom, which is there, but with an AI starting platform that helps you figure out, do I even need to get to that place of the telehealth doctor? Because maybe I do just need Advil and I don't need a
That's
whole
right.
write-up over this. I just need
That's right.
Advil and 2 days rest. If not, then the AI is really good and gets them to go, hey, you actually probably should speak to someone relatively quick. We got a 24/7 person in your state to talk to. And I'm assuming then the telehealth can decide, hey, this is really acute. You need to go to an emergency room or whatever. Right?
Yeah. I mean, you're hired, right? That's pretty much it. Yeah, for sure.
Perfect. All right, good.
But one thing that I would add, though, the AI is actually incredibly good at saying, no, this is actually an emergency. You need to call emergency services. Um, Obviously, the human doctors can do that as well, but the AI mostly gets that taken care of ahead of time. But the way the AI functions and what we've built is essentially an AI that's grounded in medical documents, and we have lots of doctors that work for us, so we've built a library of thousands of medical documents that we use to kind of ground the AI. So it's accurate, right? We have done the only test, and we have the only published paper about this, where we have had an AI start with nothing, right? It essentially says, "Hey, what's going on?" Right, and then it correctly asks all of the questions to diagnose somebody. And then our AI will always give 4 diagnoses, because just like a real doctor, you never say, you've got this. It's always, that's probably this, but it could be this, this, or this, right?
Yep.
And then, since we have human doctors in the loop, and we have people that have talked to the AI and then seen human doctors, we are able to know the accuracy of our AI's diagnosis. And we have a 99.2% alignment in the treatment plans that the AI provides with the treatment plans that our doctors provide. And so we have that whole loop, but essentially our AI is also always free, and it's also anonymous by default, because it's important for people to be able to get anonymous help. It's only medical. It's all it works. That's the only way that it works. But always free, always anonymous. And then if you want, you can talk to our doctors. And by the way, we charge $39 for a doctor visit, so we're really inexpensive.
So that's amazing, because you mentioned my friends call me because they want to talk to my wife, not because they enjoy talking to me. So, and I get that, right? That's no different than
my wife is way cooler than I am anyway.
always. And we have to say that publicly while recording. We'll talk afterward. But it's no different than if your wife was an accountant, right? And your buddy is getting ready. It's April, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I got to file taxes." And he's like, "I have a quick question for an accountant," right? It's not
Right.
that different. The difference is to go see an accountant doesn't take, on average, 3 weeks or sometimes 3 months to get in to see him, or sometimes there is not an accountant within
That's right.
100 miles.
That's
That's
right.
the biggest difference, is the access to it is very, very
Yeah.
difficult, because everyone's got that moment where they're like, gosh, I can't get rid of this cough in my chest. Is this something that's serious, or is it allergies, right? We live in the South. Everyone gets allergies and they need to know the answer to that. Or, we've had a few moments between my wife and I, small little events that, like, gosh, my foot's been bothering me for a couple of days. What should I do? And
Right.
that's where it's like, let me call your wife.
Right.
And because it's so nice to have that access to an expert in the field. And in healthcare is very personal. It's less personal if you're like, hey, I need to fix my car. What's wrong? This is what my car is doing. This is the noise it's making. But same thing, everyone likes to have some access to those things, and you're providing it through AI with a 99.2% accuracy rate.
And just to
Yeah.
clarify, you said to talk to the human doctor is $39. To talk to the AI to help create that diagnosis, which is a 99.2% accuracy, what is that?
It's always free.
That's what I thought I heard. It's like,
It's by
this is like
default
going to
alone.
Google. You're like, we
Yeah.
are better than WebMD and we are better than Google, but like we'll
Yeah.
actually give you an accurate rating, and then we'll connect you with the doctor if
Yeah.
it's warranted and if it's needed. And that's something really, really cool and special. And so one of the things that I'm curious about is, I know that y'all raised a Series A, I don't know what, within the last 90 days. How long?
August, yeah. 60 days, yeah.
Yeah.
August. So that's awesome. And I have to imagine that there's growth plans with that, and there's going to be like some hiring going into that. And so, a lot of the people that are listening to us, they come on here because they're trying to figure out how to get hired. Like, what is the key in today's environment? Because I do believe, and we have been, we have people talking about it all the time. Hiring today is very different than what it was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And the expectation upon hiring is different. So I'm curious from you, when we think about technical fit as you go to hire engineers that, might want to join Doctronics, or, engineering leadership or product management or sales, whatever it might be. How do you balance technical fit versus soft skills, and how do you go about thinking about that type of stuff as you're preparing to scale using some of the money that you just received?
Yeah, we actually already did scale. Well, I mean, we are scaling, but we started scaling early because we still had most of our seed money left when we closed the A. So we started scaling before we even closed the A, because we were like, okay, this is going through. We've got a term sheet, 2 weeks, 3 weeks of paperwork, but we can start hiring. So we've gone from 10 to 50 employees in the past 2 months, which is great. And a lot of them are engineers, but a lot of them are doctors. Those are like the two big areas that we're hiring for. But I love the question about like technical versus soft skills, and I want to talk about this with engineers too, because so 5 years ago, if I was looking for, say, a back-end Python engineer, I would say like, okay, it's got to be a back-end Python engineer. I want to see 7 years of Python experience if I'm hiring a senior, right? I want to know that they have all these architectural decisions. But now, because of LLMs and coding assistants, I feel like those constraints are relaxed in a really particular way. So I have hired some PHP engineers. Swear to God, I never would have done it before, but we're a Python platform, and it's like, it takes them about a month to kind of get up to speed with all of the differences in Python and PHP. And like, sure, maybe it's syntactic sugar, but it used to take a lot longer for an engineer to kind of like switch platforms. But now, because of code assistance, you can just be like, explain this code to me. I would have done it this way in PHP. Why are you doing it this way in Python? Or I've done this in Ruby 6 times. I've never done it in Python. Here's my Ruby code. How would you transpile this to Python, right? And then you kind of have a couple conversations with some other engineers who actually know Python. So you learn much faster. And so it's great because it kind of allows us to have a lot more coverage. So we are still, for example, looking for super technical folks that have, built, interesting back end or front end or whatever, but they don't have to be so specific to our platform anymore, which I think is great. I love that, and I love the fact that that this isn't a situation where um, I feel like LLMs are limiting people. I feel like they're like expanding engineers' abilities to do more work and be more productive, which is great.
So if you're looking at someone, because I read an article, some professor, maybe it was MIT or whatever, said worry less about what your specific degree is because of AI. It's like you said, Python, PHP, Ruby. Like if you know one, you can pretty quickly know the other. What would you recommend someone going to college right now going, what do I don't even get what I should study because it's going to change so 5 years from now. I don't even know that I'll even need to know how to code because so what would you recommend that person? And again, it is a little bit
Yeah,
personal. I have a 17-year-old who's 2 years from college. If he were to want to be an engineer, which I don't think he does, but if he were, like, what do you do? Like, what do you study? Because
yeah,
what you studied 15 years ago is like irrelevant today, or
yeah.
not irrelevant, but it's not nearly as relevant as you would think it would age for 15 years because of AI and the speed it's going.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I've thought about this, and I wonder if for people that are kind of thinking about that, a CS degree is not necessarily a degree in programming, right? In fact, oftentimes it's not. Like at Carnegie Mellon, it's mostly theory, right?
Hmm.
When I was there, it was inherently a math, computer science dual degree. That was it. There was no option.
Hmm.
And I feel like math is always good to study. It's not like having calculators took away the ability or the requirement for people to understand math, right?
Yeah.
And so LLMs are certainly great at spitting out code, but I think it's still foundational for engineers to understand runtime complexity, um, uh, computer science theory, understand hardware enough to know what a CPU is and what various types of memory inside a CPU are, or the system on a chip nowadays, or whatever they are, right? So I think the kind of theoretical, these are how problems get solved, and these are why things are done this way, et cetera, is always going to be worthwhile to study. I
Yeah.
think that if you're going to have like maybe a coding boot camp is over. Maybe those just won't work so well anymore because I don't know that people really need to learn the basics of how to code in Python, right? Um, you can learn that yourself with an LLM. But I
Yeah.
think the theory is always going to be valuable.
So is that what you look for then, is less about the strict technical, but someone who wants to build, who wants to learn and has shown the propensity to, if they've done PHP, can utilize
Yeah,
AI to learn a new language, if you will, or
yeah.
build in
I
a new
mean,
environment?
so from an engineering perspective, we are searching for a couple of things. So I'm going to kind of circle around this a little bit. So first, I'm actually specifically hiring for people that have tried to start a company and failed, right? Because I tell all my engineers, like, we're very generous with equity here, and I tell them all, I'm going to give you enough equity that if this succeeds, you'll have $20 million. Go start your next company, right? Enjoy. Give us 3 to 5 years. Let's see what happens.
I have a client right now that started with gaming clips. That's what they did. They started with they're in New York. They just straight up, all they did was gaming clips, scaled it, and then they've spun out and all they do is hire people that have started companies while they're in college or previous.
yeah,
And they've spun out and started a couple of additional companies that are in like the AI space where it's like, this product worked for us internally. Now we had a really good product manager. We see a lot of profit. We're going to use it internally, but we're also selling it. And so
love it. Yeah, I mean, for sure, that's fantastic. Um, and then, I've actually never, even before LLMs, I never believed in coding interviews. I always felt like coding interviews were kind of bullshit anyway. It's like I'm more interested in problem solving, architecture. Like, explain to me why you did something one way, or like tell me how you would solve an interesting problem architecturally, like high level. I'm not worried about the code. I want to know how you solve problems. So that's really what we're selecting for and what we're looking for.
So
Um,
people that have started companies and been successful, started companies and failed, like how do you weigh that?
that's an awesome question. I'm not sure that it's relevant whether the company has succeeded or failed, because I think there are too many external factors that essentially determine whether a company will succeed or fail. Um, independent of how skilled or driven or
Yeah.
smart the founder is.
Or
So
timing.
right,
Did they build a product
timing
ahead
for
of
sure.
time?
Right, like that's it, right? And so like I certainly like think and look into and ask them to talk to me about the companies that they've built. For sure, I want to know that, right? And if somebody was like, I made a Beanie Baby auction site in 2025, I'd probably say like, okay, that failed because that's a bad idea, right? So maybe I'm not interested in you, but other than that, like there's a lot of leeway for people to just say, look, here was an interesting idea, and I was passionate about it, and here's where I thought the market was, and that didn't end up being the case, or somebody else beat me to it, or somebody else got funding, or this happened, whatever, and so I don't think that failure. I feel like failure is the wrong word also for a lot of startups that fail. I mean, obviously they've failed, but people should be
They
a lot
took a
more
risk.
specific about
It's
why,
clear that
right?
they're hyper passionate. Like I'm hearing, like
Yeah,
it's like
right.
it's clear that they took a risk. They're hyper passionate. They were able to
Yeah,
spend their time and energy on something that they
yeah,
had faith in. And you're like, we want
yeah,
people that are just gonna come in, drink the Kool-Aid, have faith that we're getting ready to
yeah,
build something that's ready to like blow up, right?
yeah, right. Like it
The
should be just
dreamers.
like I don't know. I built a company and didn't launch. I don't know. Maybe like I don't know. That's probably not the right term. But there's got to be a better term than. I feel like we should figure out a better term than fail.
I don't know. I love the idea of failing forward, and I love the idea of like how that acts value and battle scars. And there's
Yeah, for
there's something
sure.
cool about that.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
So
like
so
that's like an invest because in a lot of ways, I think you're viewing it as investments. And so when you look at like an investment portfolio, you have years that go up or investments that go up and investments that go down. And like yours, you have quote unquote failures in your
lots,
portfolio of the
lots.
last 15 or 20 years, but your overall portfolio has continued to grow over
That's
time.
right.
So those weren't failures, those were investments that you chose to get out
Yeah,
of your position at a loss, and that's okay for other positions where you could make more money and gain. That's okay.
yeah,
I've had a couple of failed ventures, and I'm like, I kind of wear them almost as like a badge of honor. I know internally we had this discussion because we're a recruiting agency, right? And we're like, we wanted to talk about the fact that we're headhunters, and there was a
yeah.
lot of people that like get the ick when they're like, oh, headhunter, ick, and it's like headhunter and proud, yeah, like that's just this is what we do, and it's just
Who
like,
gets the ick? By the way, I have not experienced that, and by the way, like most of my engineers haven't experienced that. That actually surprises me.
yeah, we've gotten like people saying that the term headhunter was bad, and I'm like, I look at that as the same as like when people hear the word failed, like I failed as a startup.
Yeah,
It's like got this connotation with bad. I'm like, no, I think it's something to be proud of. I think it's something that's kind of awesome.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I could not build without headhunters, right? I don't have the time to recruit, and I
Right.
certainly don't have the time to select, right? I'm obviously looking for. We work with a lot of headhunters, right? Because there's a lot of talent out there, but we're very specific about what we're looking for, and so it takes a team.
So as we're getting into, you've been generous with a lot of your time. I kind of want to, make sure we're respectful of it. So we got a couple of fun questions, but where do you see, if you could Nostradamus this, where do you see AI or not just in the healthcare space, but AI in general, where is that taking us in the next, we'll just go with 5 years. That makes it easier timeline for you.
Where does AI take us in the next? Well, let's see. I think that well, first off, I don't think we're going to hit AGI in the next 20 years. I think
No
AGI
singularity.
is not a thing that's happening anytime soon. I think it's going to take um, something much bigger than LLMs to get there, and I think LLMs are fantastic, by the way. I think we'll see a lot of heavily regulated industries like law and medicine start to see AIs capable of doing some of these smaller, boring things that are very safe for an AI to do in order to relieve the burden on people. And I think that's going to be one of the bigger things in the next 5 to 10 years. I don't know, how many jobs AI is replacing. Like that's a hard one, right? Because um, I'm hiring a lot of people, but obviously we're an AI first company. But I can definitively say that every engineer I have is 30% more capable with AI tools right now. And they all also feel that way. And it's a rough number, but it's there for sure. Our doctors are 8 to 10 times more capable with our AI kind of helping them out. And that's like absolutely measurable, right? Our doctors can see 12 patients in an hour because the AI does all of the work that, a chief resident, the best chief resident in the world would be doing for them. Right? It gathers all the data and then it kind of says, here are 4 probable diagnoses and here's a complete doctor's note, and it passes it all to the doctor ahead of time. So, they'll obviously read everything and then talk to the patient, but they can be hyper efficient. Um, we're certainly not going to take any doctor jobs. There aren't enough doctors, right? If our AIs, if our AI is working for all of the primary care doctors on the planet right now, then maybe there would be enough doctors to see the patients, but maybe not, right? So I think that AI is unlikely to take a huge number of jobs. I think it's going to rapidly change landscapes and make people a lot more efficient. So, hot take that's not so hot. It's just going to make people more efficient.
Okay, so then the fun question that comes from that. So AGI or AI is not going to kill us. It's not the end of us in
Well,
5 years.
I didn't say that. I said AGI is not real in the next
Okay.
20 years. That doesn't mean AI won't kill us. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we've had this topic because we've talked to a few other people in the AI space, and it's this fun. You can read articles of people who and I listened to a Rogan podcast where the guy was like, "Well, AI is going to end us, and it's coming, and it's a 99% certainty."
Okay, so my P doom for the next 20 years based on AI is like 0.
Okay.
I just don't see it.
All right, that makes me feel a little bit better. All right. So yeah, again, it's one of those things that you see it moving so fast. Yeah. But then again, the internet went through this too, and then it kind of settled in and it just became part of our lives. It didn't replace everything we did. Our brains didn't get plugged into the wall. It just it made us do things slightly differently, slightly more efficient in some areas and less efficient in others. It would be my belief, right? Like I don't know that we are as a society wildly better than we were in 1960 or whatever, but we have tools now that have changed how we do what we do. Yes, accountants and spreadsheets and everything's faster than on paper. Does that mean that we pay less taxes or more tax? I don't think it matters, right? Like it changed how an accountant was going to do the taxes and file everything. We can do it electronically. We can do things a little bit faster. Yeah. Okay. Interesting and cool. All right. So the fun topic, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. Here's this. You might not be fun with this one. What are you watching on Netflix? You said you don't like to sit around and watch, but what is your?
Oh yeah. So yeah, I don't like to watch. Since as we said before, since I've had children and a family, I don't like to watch horror films.
Okay.
I actually don't even like to watch dark comedies anymore. I used to love dark comedies. I don't find them amusing anymore. You know what I'm watching now? It's a little embarrassing. I never actually watched How I Met Your Mother when it was on TV.
Oh, all right.
So I think it's actually 20 years old right now, and you watch the intros and the it starts with like the father talking to his children, right? And it's the year 2030, and we're way closer to that year than when it was on TV. I think it started in 2005. So I'm very late to the picture, but that's what I'm watching.
I actually used to love that show, and I have 6 brothers and 3 sisters, but me and my brother used to do slap bets all the time. Slap bets were like the thing, and it was awesome how savage some of the slap bets were.
So okay, and I can wrap my head around that. I was thinking about as you're saying that. I don't like to sit, and the whole idea of watching a movie, you said I don't like watching movies.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. So Gladiator 2 came out, and I was like, I got it. But I had to see it because I saw Gladiator 1.
It was horrible. Yeah. Gladiator is one of my favorites.
And I then didn't go see it in the theater. I thought I would, but it never materialized. Then it comes out on Netflix or Hulu or HBO or whatever one it was on. And it took me like 4 months to even watch it there because the idea of sitting still for 2.5 hours is like, that's a lot. I do watch a lot of short anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour an evening as we're going to bed. My wife and I will watch them. And that's my new thing that I keep bringing up with everyone that we talked about before you officially came on the show here was I've been watching Monster, the Ed Gein story, and it's the most disturbing thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Nope. 10 out of 10 do not recommend.
And I highly recommend it because my brain's been melted, and that means everyone else needs to have their brain melted because
he did crack, so you need to do crack. Let's say no to crack, boys and girls.
It is
no to crack. No to crack.
It is the most disturbing. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But that's the thing about the pre-streaming shows like How I Met Your Mother. Each episode is actually only 18 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
Because they had all the commercial time, right? So I can mostly watch one of those episodes and only check my email 6 or 7 times in an 18-minute cycle. It's great.
Yeah, and if you happen to get into it and you watch 2 or 3 episodes, okay, but for the most part, it's 18 minutes, and then you're done. Maybe it's 25 minutes, and then you're done. Like
there are no serial killers. Yeah,
yep.
It's interesting where you bring up the fact that you're watching How I Met Your Mother. There's been a lot of conversations lately about people trying to go back to the 90s, where they're like, everything's so complicated now. Like, how do we do
Taco Bell?
How do we do things back to the 90s? And I'm waiting. I know a lot of these people that are getting ready to do a lot of this 90s nostalgia. Like, how do we go back to that? We work with a lot of video game studios, and there's a lot of conversation.
Oh, so they're making nostalgia games that make sense for sure.
Nostalgic. There's a lot of people that are like, how do we go back and bring back the simpler things and make it.
Well, and everyone, again, Taco Bell, their big thing. I keep seeing the commercial for Taco Bell's menu. They call it Y2K. It's like this idea of bring it back to 2000, and they have the double decker taco and a couple other, I don't know, empanadas or whatever they're selling. And my kids, they went to their homecoming dance.
There's a whole TikTok trend about going back to the 90s. Yeah, it's so funny.
Well, my kids went to their homecoming, and the after party was a 1990s themed after party, and I'm like,
love it.
This is so outrageous. But I love it because I'm a child. I mean, I was born in 79. So I
love it because I am a 90s baby. So that too.
So let's go. All right. So last question. You mentioned you worked on your car in high school. What was your car in high school?
Oh man, I had an old inline Jeep, one of those old Jeep Cherokees with the inline, straight 6, and it was a truck, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was technically
what year?
Doors, but 1989. It was black. It was a wreck that had been where the frame was all sorts of fucked up, but had been straightened enough that it was safe to drive and cheap.
That's awesome.
It was just the easiest thing to work on. You didn't, you could buy the what was it, the Kelly Blue Book manual or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
No, actually, it wasn't Kelly Blue Book. It was some other company that published all the manuals for it. But it was a truck engine. It was easy to work on, right? It was easy to take apart. It was easy to pull everything out. Plenty of room under the hood. It was a great car. It was a great car.
Boxy Jeep Cherokees.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
talking about going to the past, like I can't change anything in my car nowadays without needing to go to some program. I got a Bronco.
It's a computer.
It's a computer now. Like you can't change anything on your own without special gear.
Yep.
The only thing that I did, so I live in New York, so we have a car that we bought during COVID to essentially get out of the city, and so it's like an older like Hyundai, right? It's not that old. It's like a 2017, but it didn't have CarPlay, so I put in a new, car stereo, right? That was about it, right? Like you can't do, and by the way, like, the rear camera still shows the like dual lines for spacing because the head unit has one, but the camera has one built in. All sorts of like quirky little software things that you can't fix, and it works and it's fine and it's great. But that's like the most you can do on a car nowadays.
Yep.
I don't even think you can do that on a car that's been built in the past 5 years anyway.
Nope.
They're all locked down.
Yep. So Matt, how can people get a hold of you? I'm guessing a lot of people who are watching this like me are like, okay, I want to invest in Doctronic. I want to use Doctronic and I want to go work for Doctronic. How can people do that? How do they go find you, meet you, talk to you, whatever?
Well, nobody can invest because we've already taken all the money.
All right. That was just me asking.
But we would love people to use the product. It's live at doctronic.ai. You can also just Google AI doctor. We're the #1 result. But also, we have a jobs at email address, jobs@doctronic.ai. Like, send your resume, please. We are always hiring smart people, and we are looking for all sorts of folks, not just doctors and engineers.
Especially if you started a company, failed
Especially if
or
you started a
successful.
company and failed or succeeded. Yeah.
All right. Well, Matt, we really appreciate you joining. Thank you so much for giving us your time and giving the
Super fun.
millions of listeners all the great stuff that you have talked about. And everyone should go check out How I Met Your Mother because he recommends it. So, Matt, again, thank you so much for joining us. To everyone else, click, subscribe, comment, post, and reach out to Matt if you're looking for a job or want to get some free AI doctor support because it's pretty amazing. So, everyone else, goodbye.